All right, everyone, welcome back. We're diving headfirst into some pretty fascinating stuff today. Bitcoin. Yeah, it took a bit of a tumble recently.
It did.
And here's where it gets interesting, this little dip. It might actually tell us a lot about the stock market,
Yeah.
about the Federal Reserve, and, what happens in those big arenas. It kind of has a habit of impacting, well, everything else.
Yeah.
So we're going on a deep dive today, trying to figure out just how these pieces, Bitcoin, stocks, the Fed, how are they all actually connected? What's the story here?
Well, let's start with that Bitcoin drop, huh? Almost 8%. Landed below that $100,000 mark. It's sitting at, what, $94,106 right now?
Oof. Yeah, not a great look.
Not on the surface. But here's the thing, the S&P 500, that index actually had it worse. Way worse. Worst day in 15 years, in fact.
Seriously, after what, the Fed saying they might ease up on cutting rates?
Exactly. Investors, they don't like uncertainty. That announcement, well, it spooked them.
But I'm a little confused. Bitcoin, I always thought it was supposed to be this separate thing, right? Independent of all the Wall Street stuff. Is this a sign that it's like more tied to traditional markets than we thought?
Good question. It's not quite that simple. I mean, yeah, Bitcoin is its own beast, different asset class and all. But to think it's in some, like, totally isolated bubble, come on.
Right.
The global economy, investor sentiment, central banks, all that stuff, it all has an impact. And this time around, some analysts are actually looking at Bitcoin holding up, well, relatively better than stocks as a sign of, strength maybe.
So not just crashing alongside everything else.
Right.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about what these analysts are saying.
Sure. So Alex Kupcikovich over at FX Pro, he's been watching these markets for years. He's actually pointing to this, what he calls relative strength, as a potentially positive sign. And, he also talks about how Bitcoin's price has these dot cycles. He's observed that historically things get really volatile towards the end of the year, leads to a price peak, you get all the hype, and then, bam, correction.
Wait, so does that mean we're in for a roller coaster ride
Uh-huh.
and then prices go up?
Well, Kupcikovich's analysis suggests that this pattern could, in theory, set us up for some price increases next year. Key word there is could.
Right.
We can't just rely on history repeating itself. Got to look at the bigger picture, the upcoming economic data. And speaking of, that personal consumption expenditures price index coming out in November, yeah, that one's going to be big.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Inflation data, that's going to give us a much clearer idea of what's actually going on with inflation, right?
Exactly. And don't forget, inflation is a major reason the Fed is making these moves with interest rates in the first place.
Right. And those rates, well, they affect both the stock market and crypto. See, I told you it was all connected.
It is. It really is. And, the Fed, they've got their eyes on that 2% inflation target. If we actually manage to hit that, they might, ease up on those rate hikes.
And that would be good news for
It's
sure.
pretty much everyone, yeah. Stocks, crypto, the whole shebang.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Bitcoin took a hit, yeah, but some analysts, they're saying, hey, maybe this shows it's actually more resilient than we thought, especially since it didn't totally tank like the stock market. And then we've got these historical price cycles Kupcikevich was talking about, and on top of that, this super important inflation data coming out soon.
Yep, that's the situation in a nutshell. A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, a lot to keep an eye on. Makes you wonder, though, if Bitcoin keeps holding up better than stocks during these downturns. I mean, does that change how people think about, where it fits in their portfolios?
That is a really good question. Something to think about. I don't have the answer to that one.
Yeah, something for everyone listening to ponder, I guess. The next few months are going to be interesting, to say the least. Until next time, folks, keep those brains engaged, stay curious. We'll see you soon for another deep dive.